This is the Weekly Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Darshana Gauchan. The ASEAN foreign ministers issued a joint statement after the 2022 ASEAN foreign ministers meeting on Friday, 18th February, with 33 points of joint commitment. Of the 33 commitments, 2 focus on the South China Sea, with some ministers raising concerns over control activities, regional conflicts, and destruction of marine resources. EAC News reporter Robin Lim has more details.
The 27th and the 28th point in the joint statement says that the South China Sea issue has undermined confidence, caused tension, and could jeopardize regional peace and stability. The ASEAN foreign ministers reaffirmed their commitment to maintaining and promoting peace in the region by finding a peaceful solution without the use of threats or force. The 9 foreign ministers also stressed the importance of implementing confidence-building and safeguarding measures while recalling the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea and support for the South China Sea Code of Conduct negotiations. Article 28 of the statement says, "We emphasize the need to maintain and promote a conducive environment for COC negotiations, and therefore welcome further practical measures to avoid escalating tensions, risk, danger, misunderstanding, and anything that will affect peace and stability." Previously, in 2002, while Cambodia was chairing the ASEAN-China Summit, it signed the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, which set the stage for a formal code of conduct to be followed. The terms of the declaration were established by the signatory countries only, promising to resolve differences peacefully and exercise self-restraint in actions that would complicate or escalate the conflict and jeopardize peace and stability. The 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen, has announced a 3-point solution to the South China Sea issue, which includes the implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, the facilitation of ASEAN-China dialogue, and the implementation of the South China Sea Code of Conduct. However, the Prime Minister has also told the international community not to blame Cambodia if a solution cannot be formed this year alone, because no issue in the South China Sea has been resolved by any ASEAN chair thus far. He further requested members of the international community to not heavily criticize Cambodia without evaluating the implementation efforts and actions taken first. The South China Sea dispute escalated during 2013 when China began island building in the Spratleys and Paracels Islands. 5 ASEAN countries, the Philippines, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, are locked in a dispute with China over maritime territorial claims and trade issues of great value in the sea. Robin Lim, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen, the honorary vice president of the Cambodian National Council for Women, presided over a review meeting of the National Council at the Peace Palace on Monday morning. During the meeting, he expressed his appreciation for the efforts of the council members who have actively contributed to building and development of society, adding that women are involved in many activities in various sectors, including health, service, education, and the military. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
During the meeting, Lady Excellency Chu Bun Eng, the representative of the Minister of Women's Affairs and President of the Cambodian National Council for Women, Ung Kuntapavi, said that capacity development at the national and subnational leadership levels, particularly capacity development for women leaders and female civil servants at the national level, was highly regarded by institutional leaders between 2020 to 2021, wherein 2,235 women out of a total of 3,871 participants attended seminars, training, and skills-building courses both in the country and abroad. Lady Excellency Chu Bun Eng continued that, at the level of subnational administration, the Ministry of Women's Affairs organized a program to develop the capacity of women's affairs officers in conducting their work, seeking support, addressing gender mainstreaming and the environment, and addressing social ethics, leadership, and inclusion at the municipal, district, and commune level. She added that the ministry conducted an online course to strengthen the role of women in leadership and the responsibility of the Advisory Committee on Women and Children, with a total of 1,128 participants, in which 840 were women. She further stated that the National Council of Cambodia for Women has coordinated the preparation of the progress report for 2020 to 2021 and the action plan for 2022 with input from ministries, institutions, authorities at all levels and recommendation from the Gender Technical Working Group, as well as approval from members of the Cambodian National Council for Women. The 2020-2021 performance report identifies the progress, new challenges, and remaining issues that still need to be worked on in the context of COVID-19 to rehabilitate and promote inclusive development by continuing to implement specific policy measures, programs, and activities with the overarching goal of promoting gender equality and empowerment of women for inclusive and sustainable development. On behalf of the National Council for Women, Lady Excellency Chu Bun-eng expressed her deep gratitude to Prime Minister Hun Sen for giving high priority to promoting gender equality and the status of women in all fields and at all levels through the implementation of laws, policies, and measures and national and subnational mechanisms. She further thanks the Prime Minister for always providing full support, both in spirit and budget, to the activities of the National Council of Cambodia for Women to achieve proud progress under national peace. Since 2006, the leadership of Cambodian National Council for Women has held regular annual meetings under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Hun Sen. The meetings are held to monitor the activities and implementation of recommendations by the National Council, which contributes to the royal government's ongoing work to promote rights, freedoms, and giving special roles and status to participate in the priorities of women's affairs. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Ministry of Health has issued additional instructions on strengthening the implementation of health measures to combat and prevent the spread of COVID-19, especially within the local community, by encouraging those who have been directly or indirectly in contact with COVID-19 patients to self-isolate, closely monitor their personal health, and undergo rapid tests for early diagnosis and treatment. The ministry also encourages those showing severe symptoms to avoid self-treating at home. EAC News reporter Robin Lim has the details.
In the latest instruction released by the Ministry of Health on Sunday, 20 February, it states that COVID-19 patients with mild or no symptoms may undergo self-treatment at home with the necessary prescribed medication or antiviral drugs, such as 200 mg tablets of molnupiravir sold under the brand name Molnatris, with the recommended dose of 4 tablets per 12 hours for 5 consecutive days. The ministry has said molnupiravir should be taken as soon as possible after receiving a positive COVID-19 rapid antigen test result. This drug should, however, not be taken by those who are under the age of 18 and those who are currently pregnant or breastfeeding. The ministry further advises COVID-19 patients with mild to no symptoms to stay at home and undergo rapid testing for COVID-19 on day 7 if no symptoms have been present for the last 3 days, during days 5, 6, and 7. If patients get a negative rapid test result, they will be permitted to complete their treatment on your own at home. But if the test result is still positive on the 7th day, patients must continue conducting tests 48 hours apart until a negative test result is obtained. Additionally, people who have been fully vaccinated do not need to continue their quarantine after successfully completing their treatment and obtaining a negative result. Those who have not been fully vaccinated yet must undergo quarantine for an additional 7 days after completing treatment. Most importantly, the ministry stresses that COVID-19 patients exhibiting any form of severe symptoms such as fatigue or shortness of breath should not try and self-medicate at home and should instead seek timely hospital treatment to save their lives. The ministry has said, although a number of scientific studies have shown that the new COVID-19 Omicron variant is relatively mild, we must not overlook the possibility of a COVID-19 outbreak which might cause serious accidents or deaths. All positive test takers must report their status to local authorities or a medical team, especially the director of the provincial health department where the individual lives, in order to properly conduct treatment procedures and monitor and prevent transmission to others. The Ministry of Health urges people to continue adhering to the recommended health measures of the 3 do's and don'ts, to avoid gathering in large numbers and keep all gatherings in general to a minimum. Robin Lim, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has called on citizens to be careful not to throw their garbage out in the open and on the streets, to maintain the beauty of the city as well as to maintain the quality of the sewage system. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
While speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of Bung Chung Ai wastewater treatment plant in Min Jae District, Phnom Penh on Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that the concern of Phnom Penh at this time is that the people do not keep the streets clean and throw their garbage properly. He said some garbage is thrown into the sewers, which clogs the drainage system and causes problems such as flooding when it rains. He continued that despite the proliferation of separate garbage bins for solid waste and liquid waste, there are some citizens who still refuse to separate their trash accordingly. The Prime Minister thus appealed to residents and visitors of Phnom Penh to pay attention to the correct system of garbage separation to keep the environment clean and a shared sense of responsibility. He added that the city's official cleaners and garbage retrieval services cannot be blamed as they are not responsible for the way the garbage is disposed. And managing the garbage is simple enough and not a difficult process, so citizens must actively take effort to dispose of their trash responsibly. This is especially important given increasing consumption rate in Phnom Penh, he said, which has increased the amount of garbage produced in a day. He added that currently 3,000 tons of garbage is being collected per day. In Phnom Penh, the amount of garbage collected per day has been steadily increasing from around 2,600 tons in 2018 to around 2,900 tons in 2019. At present, the landfill is unable to accommodate for the increased amount of garbage produced in Phnom Penh yet, which is a major challenge that requires an urgent solution. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Ministry of Health has announced that in order to continue promoting the national COVID-19 vaccine campaign, the times you can go and get your vaccine will be extended on weekends and also over the holidays for more convenience. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
According to the statement issued by the Ministry of Health on Monday, in order to accelerate the rate of COVID-19 vaccination to reach the target goals of each age group as soon as possible, the Ministry has sought out cooperation of all parties involved to extend the times people can go and get vaccinated to the weekends and also over the holidays. The Ministry hopes that this will increase convenience and also help educate and mobilise people to receive their third dose or booster dose. In addition, for those who are unable to make this trip to vaccine sites for valid reasons, the Ministry has stated it will send medical team to local commune to administer the vaccines. The Ministry of Health has appealed to the capital provincial administrators and local authorities at all levels throughout the country to mobilise people to get vaccinated for their third dose or booster dose, as well as those who have not received their two base doses, in order to accelerate the rate at which COVID-19 vaccinations are administered to meet the campaign's target goals. The Ministry of Health continues to remind all individuals that even after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine, everyone must continue to implement the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures and continue to abide by the guidance of the National Education Campaign under the theme of joint responsibility and prevention of the transmission of COVID-19. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced that if his son, Hun Manet, after becoming the Prime Minister, commits evil deeds to the detriment of the Cambodian People's Party and the people of Cambodia, he will no longer continue to support him. He made the statement while speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the new Chung Aik wastewater treatment plant in Phnom Penh on Tuesday morning. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has stated that he is training his son Hun Manet for the role of Prime Minister as he plans for his son to assume this role in the future with the best interest of the nation in mind. However, he has said that he would not continue to support Hun Manet if he led the country badly and damaged the interests of the nation, the people, and the Cambodian People's Party. During his speech, he also asked why the children of others can take over leadership roles from their fathers but not his son, alluding to some of the criticism that have come in response to the Prime Minister's declaration that his son will be the future Prime Minister of Cambodia. He further added that Hun Manet has received enough knowledge to assume the role of Prime Minister well, but if Hun Manet was to do bad things or lead the country badly, then Prime Minister Hun Sen would not be able to support him because he does not want the CPP or the Cambodian nation to be destroyed by his children's deeds.
រឿងអីកូនគេធ្វើបានអ្នកដទៃធ្វើបានហើយកូនខ្ញុំទទួលបានការបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលប៉ុណ្ណឹងធ្វើមិនបានប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់បើសិនជាកូនខ្ញុំវាធ្វើអំពើអាក្រក់ខ្ញុំមិនអាចនឹងគ្រប់គ្រងវាបានទេនិយាយឲ្យច្បាស់ខ្ញុំមិនអាចឲ្យគណៈបកប្រជាជន ត្រូវបំផ្លាញដោយកូនរបស់ខ្ញុំទេហើយខ្ញុំក៏មិនទុកឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋត្រូវបំផ្លាញដោយស្នាដៃកូនរបស់ខ្ញុំទេ
Previously, at the 43rd Central Committee meeting of the CPP held on the 24th of December 2021, the party officially declared the unanimous decision to elect Hun Manet as the future candidate of Prime Minister, after Prime Minister Hun Sen has decided to step down from this role. 44-year-old Hun Manet is the eldest son of Prime Minister Hun Sen. He was the first Cambodian to graduate from the West Point Military Academy in the United States and also holds a doctorate of economics from the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom. Hun Manet also holds the rank of 3-star Lieutenant General as the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Army. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a press release on Monday announcing the Prime Minister of Malaysia's official state visit to Cambodia from 23rd to 24th February 2022 at the invitation of Prime Minister Hun Sen. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
At the invitation of Prime Minister Hun Sen, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob, will lead a high-level delegation to pay an official visit to the Kingdom of Cambodia from the 23rd to 24th of February 2022. During the visit, the Malaysian Premier will be received by His Royal Highness King Norodom Sihamuni at the Royal Palace, and the Prime Minister will also pay courtesy calls to the President of the Senate, Sai Chum, and the President of the National Assembly, Heng Samrin. The Cambodian and Malaysian Prime Ministers will hold a meeting to discuss bilateral relations and cooperation, including trade and investment, economy, defense and security, and post-COVID-19 socio-economic recovery. The two leaders will also exchange views on regional and international issues of common interest and concern, and at the end of the meeting, they will hold a joint press conference. The Prime Minister of Malaysia will also lay a wreath at the Independence Monument and pay tribute to the Royal Memorial statue of the late King Father Norodom Sihanouk. As 2022 marks the 65th anniversary of the establishment of the diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Malaysia, the official visit of Prime Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob will be a significant milestone to further strengthen the existing good bonds of friendship, solidarity, and cooperation between the two countries, in both bilateral and multilateral frameworks for the mutual benefits of the two nations. Dekanin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has confirmed that there will be no more city or country closures or lockdowns, while many have suggested that Cambodia may likely see another blockade. He made this statement on Tuesday morning while speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of Bong Chung Aik wastewater treatment plant in Min Che District, Phnom Penh. EAC News reporter Robin Lim has more details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that there is no need to close Phnom Penh or the whole country again, as done in 2021, due to the high vaccination rate in the Cambodian population. He said that while in the past, if there were infections found in the market, we would have to close the market, but now we just need to close the shop of the infected vendor and have the place disinfected. This is the normal process and no market-wide closures will need to take place. He continued to say that he would like to end the rumor that there would be a closure of cities and provinces again. He said the decision to close Phnom Penh and Tak Mau in the past was a difficult but correct one, because at that time we had not been fully vaccinated, but now we have vaccinated the whole country, so there is no reason to close again.
នៅក្នុងពេលវេលាមួយដ៏លំបាកដោយសារយើងអត់តាន់ចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងប៉ុន្តែឥឡូវនេះយើងអត់មានតម្រូវការណាមួយសម្រាប់ការបិទទីក្រុង
In 2021, due to the 20th of February community transmission event, Cambodia was forced to close the country to prevent a large-scale outbreak in the country. This year, despite the rising number of new infections in the community due to the COVID-19 Omicron variant, Prime Minister Hun Sen has confirmed that there will be no more country closures. Dekanin, EAC News.
While delivering a speech at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of Bong Chung-aik wastewater treatment plant on Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen called on the sellers of COVID-19 treatment drugs to not increase prices to ensure that the medicine can still be affordable to all. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Prime Minister has said that the government is working to increase the supply of COVID-19 treatment drugs and to further implored pharmacies and people selling the medicine to not increase prices as they wish to say the drugs can still be affordable for everyone. He further stated that the Health Department must check whether the drugs being sold are real or not, because counterfeits happen a lot. There is even counterfeit alcohol, so everyone must be careful of counterfeit drugs. The Minister of Health has also announced it will take legal action against unauthorised sale of COVID-19 medicine among sellers who do not have valid visa numbers or approved registrations from the Ministry, as the sale of unauthorised drugs may endanger the health and lives of consumers. This is a warning from the Ministry came after a number of Facebook accounts began promoting the sale of unregistered COVID-19 treatment products. The Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications has also issued a statement stating that the COVID-19 treatment drug Melantris should not be sold more than $65. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Ministry of Planning has announced that the 2022 economic census will be conducted from 1st to 31st March 2022 nationwide, with a total of 5,000 interviews conducted with officials in order to calculate and evaluate economic growth by sector in each provincial capital. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The Ministry of Planning has stated that the 2022 census must have accurate, reliable and timely data to meet the demand for data based on the economic context in the capitals, provinces, regions and the world, which has progressed with the fourth generation of the Industrial Revolution and will bring modern technology for the development of the digital economic in line with the rectangular strategy phrase 4 of the Royal Government of Cambodia. Senior Minister of Planning Chai Ton has said that the census data will provide important input for the policy formulation, economic development and environment, society and culture, and will also provide indicators for Cambodia's strategy to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. He further stated that this is the second economic census of its kind, first conducted in 2011 under the name Enterprise Census in the Kingdom of Cambodia 2011. Although in 2014 a similar survey was conducted at the smaller scale under the name Survey Between Enterprises and Kingdom of Cambodia 2014. The Senior Minister also mentioned that according to the preliminary results of the census of the economic units in the 25 provincial capitals, there will be a total of 743,532 economic units in 2021 nationwide. The number of economic entries increased by about 47% compared to date from 2011 census, an increase by about 45% in 2014. The preliminary results also show the change in the population structure and administrative geography at the local level, villages, communes and districts and the provincial capitals, with a total of population of nearly 16 million people and a total of 3.6 million households in 2019. The Director General of National Institute of Statistics from the Ministry of Planning, Hung Lina, has stated that the census staff will visit the bases of factories, enterprises, companies, pagodas and businesses of all sizes to inquire about business-related information, and the results of the census will be officially announced in 2023. She further suggested that economic entries operating in specific locations should be prepared and participate in the census. The economic census is conducted every 10 years based on Article 678 of the Law of Statistics and the sub-degree number 151 dated the 2nd of October 2019. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen requested all officials to implement tax payments properly so that the state still has enough money to spend. He announced he will no longer allow for a culture of tax evasion to continue anymore. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has called on ministries and institutions to reduce spending and increasing revenue as the government has to spend more on COVID-19 crisis. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the meeting to summarise the work of 2021 and the work of orientation of 2022 of the Ministries and Interior on Wednesday, Prime Minister Hun Sen asked the ministries and state institutions to reduce spending to help the government deal with national problems such as the fight against COVID-19. He said the government has spent a lot of money to buy vaccines, provide supplies to citizens and buy medicine, which is necessary for Cambodia today. The Premier has asked all the ministries and the state institutions to reduce unnecessary expenses to be ready in case of any eventual problems. He continued to say, in the past we earned 3, spent 2 and saved 1, but since COVID-19 we have not been able to reduce costs. Please ensure an order. If there is any project and if it can be postponed, please postpone it because cost is less. At the same time, the Prime Minister also called to all the customs to try to collect more revenue and warn those who invade paying taxes for their cars that their vehicles can be burned. He said that in the past, the tax for cars had been reduced by 10% for those who had not yet paid the import tax. But now it is too late and everyone must pay their full taxes. The General Department of Customs and Excise of Cambodia reduced tax for vehicles by 10% for those who had not paid the import tax by the 31st of December 2021. However, starting from January 1, 2022 until 30th of June 2022, vehicle owners must fulfil their tax and duty obligations without any tax deductions. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen delivered a speech on Wednesday afternoon for the closing of the 2-day meeting reviewing the Ministry of Interior's work from 2021 and appointing the work plan for 2022. During his speech, the Prime Minister specifically singled out the Minister of Agriculture, Veng Sakon, and blamed him for a lack of cooperation with other ministers. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
Speaking at the closing ceremony of the meeting to review the work results of 2021 and the work direction of 2022 of the Ministry of Interior on Wednesday afternoon, Prime Minister Hun Sen called out the Minister of Agriculture, Veng Sakon, for not knowing how to work with other ministers and thus wasted money. The Prime Minister likened Minister Veng Sakon's way of working to the way he rides a horse to see flowers. The Prime Minister said, "Look, can you cooperate a little? For example, there we have an economic policy committee and you are a Minister of Agriculture, but you are not in charge of the whole economy. Let me be clear with you. How many people do you satisfy that raise pigs? If you don't control the rise of inflation, there is a problem. I know you well, and your way of working is akin to riding a horse to see the flowers."
មើលលោកឯងធ្វើសហការទៅមើលណាចំពោះមុខគឺមានគណៈកម្មការគោលនយោបាយសេដ្ឋកិច្ចមួយហើយណាមិនមែនលោកឯងដឹកនាំក្រសួងកសិកម្មមួយហើយត្រួតត្រាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចខ្មែរទាំងមូលណាអានោះខ្ញុំនិយាយច្បាស់ជាមួយលោកឯងលោកឯងបំពេញចិត្តមនុស្សប្រមាណអ្នកในការចិញ្ចឹមសត្វប៉ុន្តែលោកឯងធ្វើយ៉ាងម៉េចគ្រប់គ្រងអតិផរណាកើតអានេះជាបញ្ហាណាជាបញ្ហាហើយបើគិតតែលោកឯងនិយាយខ្ញុំស្គាល់លោកឯងជាងអីទៀតរបៀបធ្វើការឯកឧត្តមប្រហែលជារបៀបជិះសេះមើលផ្កា
Prime Minister Hun Sen reminded Minister Veng Sakon and other ministers that if the Prime Minister wanted to terminate a minister before the end of his term, it would take only 24 hours. The Prime Minister's reaction to the Minister of Agriculture comes after an exchange of messages between the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Agriculture regarding the rising cost of pork imports and keeping the price of domestic meat affordable for the people. Decca Nin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has called on authorities, relevant institutions, and the general public to join together to accelerate the journey towards achieving the vision of a mine-free Cambodia by 2025. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the story.
In the message released by the Prime Minister for the occasion of the 23rd anniversary of Mine Awareness Day on February 24th, he reflected on how the war left behind a large number of landmines, cluster munitions, and explosive remnants of war in Cambodia, which caused thousands of people to be injured, maimed, and killed, forcing many to face unprecedented tragedy. The Prime Minister called on all relevant ministries and authorities at all levels to participate more actively in raising awareness on the dangers of landmines, cluster munitions, and explosive remnants of war. He stated that the Mine Authority must continue to coordinate with national and international operators and stakeholders to identify mine-affected areas and call on donor countries and development partners to continue to support the mining activities. He also called on the people to not try and touch, burn, throw, or play with any found cluster munitions or explosive remnants of war. Moreover, he urged citizens to not use land or enter areas that they are not familiar with or are suspected to have landmines and called for a ban on buying, selling, storing, and processing mines, bombs, and other explosive remnants of war. For the past 29 years from 1992 to 2021, an area of 2,325 square kilometers in Cambodia was cleared of landmines for use in cultivation, of which 71% has been allocated for agriculture, 8% for infrastructure, and 21% for the general construction of houses, villages, schools, health centers, and more, with over 7.3 million people benefiting. In total, over 1.1 million anti-personnel mines, close to 26,000 anti-tank mines, and explosive remnants of war, and 2.9 cluster munitions were found and destroyed in the past 29 years. Meanwhile, the number of victims to landmine has decreased from 4,320 in 1996 to 44 in 2021. Dekanin, EAC News.
German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has stressed the importance of G7 ASEAN solidarity and partnership in tackling the Ukraine crisis. She made these remarks during a meeting with Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn in Germany on Wednesday, 23rd February. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
During a meeting between Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn and German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock in Berlin, Germany, the two sides discussed bilateral relations, cooperation with ASEAN and Indo-Pacific region, climate change, as well as current pressing issues of the regional and international interests of concern, particularly the situation in Ukraine. Foreign Minister Baerbock stressed the importance of unity and partnership between the G7 and ASEAN, while Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn stressed the importance of ensuring world peace and upholding the rule of law in international affairs. In a similar regard, on Thursday, the 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen, also called for a dialogue and a peaceful solution to the Russian-Ukraine issue while speaking at a press conference following his meeting with the Malaysian Prime Minister. On Thursday, G7 leaders expressed unanimous and shock in condemnation of the Russian attack on Ukraine, followed with the announcement of the major economic sanctions against Russia. Russia has announced the destruction of all Ukraine air defense systems, as well as the destruction of 11 airports and the seizure of an air base just 30 kilometers from the Ukraine capital. Russia has announced the destruction of all Ukraine air defense systems, as well as the destruction of 11 airports and the seizure of the air base just 30 kilometers from the Ukraine capital. Russian forces are reportedly trying to seize Ukraine's Serbian island in the Black Sea, less than 40 kilometers from NATO member Romania, and have reportedly already seized control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, according to Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
A P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft was illuminated on Thursday while flying over Australia's northern approaches by a laser from a People's Liberation Army Navy vessel, potentially endangering lives, the Defense Department has said. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has accused Beijing of an act of intimidation on Sunday, February 20th, after a Chinese Navy vessel has directed a laser at an Australian military surveillance aircraft last week. Australia has raised the issue directly through the diplomatic and defense channels.
It's the way Australia stands up to corruption and bullying and intimidation and threats. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says it was a dangerous act. These sorts of things can be disable such aircraft and put those in the aircraft at great risk. It was a reckless and irresponsible act, and Morrison says it should not occur. Morrison has said his government will demand answers from Beijing. The Chinese vessel was sailing east with another plane ship through the Afara Sea, and at the time of the incident, the department, he said. The sea lies between the north coast of Australia and the south coast of New Guinea. The Defence Department has also said that the both ships have since transited through the Torres Strait and were in the Coral Sea. Relations between Australia and China, its top trade partner, has soared after Canberra has banned Huawei Technologies company from the 5G broadband network in 2018, toughened laws against foreign political influence, and has urged an independent investigation into the origins of COVID-19.
I'm very concerned about the actions, though, of using the lasers on an Australian surveillance aircraft. That is, I can see it no other way than an act of intimidation, one that is unprovoked, unwarranted, and Australia will never accept such acts of intimidation. They're in our exclusive economic zone. It did not occur in Australian waters, but I have no doubt that it had been an Australian vessel or a British vessel, American vessel, a French vessel, a Japanese vessel, for that matter, or German, that was going through a similar waters up in the South China Sea, and that was done to a Chinese surveillance aircraft, then I think people can guess about what the reaction to that would have been. And it's not just important for Australia, but I think all around the region, this explanation should be provided as to why a military vessel, a naval vessel, in Australia's exclusive economic zone would undertake such an act, such a dangerous act, in relation to Australian surveillance aircraft, legitimately doing what it's doing their job, being where they have every right to be. And that act of intimidation is not just a message that I suppose they're trying to send to Australia, a message that we will respond to, but it is a sign of the sort of threats and intimidation that can occur to any country in our region. And that's why we need to band together.
Hong Kong rushed to build isolation facilities to house thousands of coronavirus patients as construction crews from mainland China have worked in the rain and chilly weather on Monday, February 21st.
A local Hong Kong resident has said when the Hong Kong government dealt with the COVID-19 outbreaks, it was like blind man and an elephant operating without a plan. Now the mainland China is involved in taking the lead, which is a good thing. The Kai Tak cruise terminal, where the city's old airport once stood, will be turned into a dedicated COVID facility with 1,000 beds to mitigate overburdened public hospitals. The conversion of public housing estates, rental or commercial hotels, and indoor sports centers will also add an extra 20,000 units for people who tested positive for COVID but had no or mild symptoms for isolation. Scenes of people lying outside public hospitals in the rain and chilly weather have shocked many in the global financial hub, leading to an apology from authorities. The global financial hub's dynamic zero COVID policies, mirroring those in mainland China, have contributed to its current woes and are unsustainable, some experts say.
Beijing on Monday, February 21st, has denied Australian allegations that a Chinese naval vessel shone a laser at one of the country's surveillance aircraft in an incident that Prime Minister Scott Morrison termed an act of intimidation.
The Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin has said at a routine press briefing that they urge Australia to respect the legitimate rights of Chinese ships in relevant sea areas in accordance with international law and stop spreading false information related to China. Australian Defence Minister Peter Dutton has said previously, calling the incident very aggressive, and also said that he thinks the Chinese government is hoping that nobody talks about these aggressive bullying acts. A Chinese ship sailing off Australia's northern coast last week illuminated the plane, Canberra's Defence Department has said Sunday, adding that the act had the potential to endanger lives. However, Beijing has said the laser accusation was not true and defended the Chinese ship's movement as normal navigation in line with relevant international law. China also was accused of targeting Australian aircraft using military-grade lasers in 2019, when Australia Defence Force helicopters were illuminated over the South China Sea. Relations between China and Australia have nosedived in recent years after Morrison called for an independent investigation into the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, which first emerged globally in the Chinese city of Wuhan. China responded by placing tariffs on Australian goods worth billions of dollars, dragging both countries into a protracted trade standoff. Beijing has also retracted with fury last year when Canberra had joined a trilateral defense pact with the United States and Britain that would allow it to acquire nuclear-powered submarines to counter China's growing military might in the Asia-Pacific region.
Russia's order to deploy peacekeepers in eastern Ukraine is nonsense, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield has said on Monday, February 21st, adding that Moscow's recognition of the breakaway eastern regions was part of its attempt to create a pretext for a further invasion of Ukraine.
Speaking at an emergency UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine, Greenfield has said the consequences of Russia's actions will be dire across Ukraine, Europe, and worldwide, and that the humanitarian toll will expand significantly if Moscow invaded further. UN Political Affairs Chief Rosemary DiCarlo has told the Security Council that the United Nations regretted Russia's order to deploy troops into eastern Ukraine on a reported peacekeeping mission. Tensions between Moscow and Western capitals have escalated following weeks of United States accusations that Russia has deployed up to 150,000 troops near Ukraine's borders for an invasion. Russia has denied it wants to invade Ukraine and accuses the West of hysteria.
Russia's clear attack on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity is unprovoked. It is an attack on Ukraine's status as a UN member state. It violates a basic principle of international law, and it defies our charter. What is more, this move by President Putin is clearly the basis for Russia's attempt to create a pretext for a further invasion of Ukraine. The consequences of this action will be felt far beyond Ukraine's borders.
The Secretary General considers the decision of the Russian Federation to recognize the independence of certain areas of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions to be a violation of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine and inconsistent with the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. We very much regret this decision, which risks having regional and global repercussions.
Я благодарю госпожу Ди Карло за ее брифинг.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday, February 21st, has announced Russia will recognize two breakaway regions in Ukraine's east as independent entities, the Donetsk and Luhansk. Putin has said he was confident that Russia's citizens supported the decision, brushing off Western warnings that such a step would be illegal and would kill off peace negotiations.
Putin has announced his decision at the end of a televised national address lasting almost 1 hour. Shortly after his address, state television has aired footage of the Russian president signing a decree formally recognizing the breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent. Moscow's move could torpedo a last-minute bid for a summit with U.S. President Joe Biden to prevent Russia from invading Ukraine, and the ruble extended its losses as Putin spoke on this issue, falling 3.3% on the day to 79.83 per dollar. The European Union has warned of sanctions from the 27-nation bloc should Moscow annex or recognize the breakaway regions in the east of Ukraine and largely controlled by Russia-backed separatists. If there is annexation, there will be sanctions, and if there is recognition, I will put the sanctions on the table and the ministers will decide, the European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has said after a meeting of the bloc's foreign ministers. Recognition of the rebel-held areas could provide a pretext for Russian troops to cross the border into those areas. In his address, Putin has railed against Ukraine, saying that neo-Nazis were on the rise, oligarchic clans were rife, and that the ex-Soviet country was a U.S. colony with a puppet regime. He has described eastern Ukraine as ancient Russian lands and modern Ukraine as a state created by the Bolsheviks after the 1917 revolution. Putin has also said that Ukraine never had a tradition of genuine statehood and complained that the post-Soviet Ukraine had wanted everything it could from Moscow without doing anything in return. The Russian president has also stressed that Ukraine is not just a neighboring country, it's an integral part of Russia's history, culture, spiritual continuum.
The United Nations Secretary General has expressed concerns about reports of increased ceasefire violations. UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric has told reporters on Monday, February 21st, and has urged the use of diplomacy amid fears of a Russian invasion in Ukraine.
The spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Stéphane Dujarric, says that the United Nations are particularly concerned regarding reports of the civilian casualties, targeting of civilian infrastructure and evacuations. UN underline or call for the immediate cessation of hostilities, maximum restraint, and for all parties to avoid any action and statements that would escalate tensions further. All issues must be addressed through diplomacy. His remarks came from President Vladimir Putin, has railed against Ukraine in television address on Monday, saying that the neo-Nazis were on the rise. Oligarchy clans were rifled and the ex-Soviet country was a US colony with a puppet regime. Washington says Russia has massed a force numbering 169 to 190,000 troops in the region, including the rebels in the breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, collectively known as the Donbass, and could invade within days. Russia denies any plans to attack its neighbour, but has threatened unspecific military technical action unless it receives sweeping security guarantees, including a promise that the Ukraine will never join NATO.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Monday, 21st February.
At least 15 people were killed in the central Somalia town of Bedouin on Saturday, February 19th, after a suicide bomber blew themselves up in a restaurant that witnesses have said was packed with local officials and politicians. The Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack, according to the report by the site intelligence, which monitors militant groups online. A further 18 people were injured in the attack. One of those killed in Bedouin was a candidate in an ongoing parliament election, residents have said. The parliamentary elections began on November the 1st, 2021, and were initially supposed to end on December 24th, but are currently due to be completed on February the 25th.
Police in Kathmandu has fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse protesters opposed to a U.S.-funded infrastructure program that was set to be presented in Parliament for ratification on Sunday, February 20. Witnesses and officials in Nepal's capital have said. Some protesters have injured in the clashes. The Millennium Challenge Corporation, a U.S. government aid agency, has agreed in 2017 to provide $500 million in grants to fund a 300-kilometer electricity transmission line and a road improvement project in Nepal. Government officials have said the grant will not have to be repaid and comes with no strings, but opponents say the agreement would undermine Nepal's laws and sovereignty as lawmakers would have insufficient oversight of the board directing the infrastructure project. Despite loud protests, the Minister for Communication and Information Technology, Gayanendra Bahadur Karki, put forward the agreement in Parliament and has said the protest would benefit 24 million of Nepal's 30 million population. Nepal relies heavily on foreign aid, and donors coordinate development aid policy through the Nepal Development Forum, whose members include donor countries and international financial organizations.
A massive fish kill in the Coele River estuary in Chile last week has left fishermen overworked, residents in fear, and thousands of tons of dead sardines floating along local shorelines. According to a statement on the website of Chile's National Fisheries and Aquaculture Service, Cernapesca, the entire area has been declared a human health hazard and the dead sardines have been banned for consumption. 7 major areas in the estuary have been affected by the sardine die-off, with Playa de los Pinos being hit the hardest. The news comes at a bad time for a region already struggling with stocking its national fisheries. Sardines, along with anchovy, were recently closed to fishing in the country due to low catch numbers. Cernapesca estimates that there were several hundred tons of dead fish in the water. Fisherman Hernan Machua has said around 1,000 tons of dead sardines have been scooped out of the water so far, and several thousand tons remain. He has also added that more help from the government in the cleanup efforts was desperately needed. Environmental officials are investigating water quality in the region off the coast of the Colima Peninsula to determine the cause of the incident. Some locals are pointing to low oxygen levels in deeper waters as the reason for the deaths, with fish having to swim closer to the shore in search of oxygen nutrients.
And now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, 22nd February.
Chile has stepped up patrols near its shared border with Bolivia as authorities seek to stem an increase in migrants crossing the frontier desert area legally. It comes about a week since Santiago brought in a new immigration law that regulates cross-border movement. According to local officials, hundreds of migrants without proper documentations have been detained in recent days to be sent back across the border. Officials say their presence at the border is also helping to tackle crimes such as people trafficking. Tensions between migrants and the Chilean citizens have spilled over in recent weeks. Migrants have set up tent camps in public spaces for temporary shelters, drawing an ire of locals. Also, some residents blame the newcomers for a spike in crime. Migration and crime were big voter concerns in presidential elections late last year, where we were won by Gabriel Boric, 35, a leftist lawmaker and a former student protest leader who comes into office in March.
A US-built F-5 jet used by the Iranian military crashed into the wall of a school in the northwestern city of Tabriz on Monday, February 21, killing the two pilots and a person on the ground. The school was closed at the time of the crash just before 9 a.m., Army spokesman Shanin Taki Kani has said. The Army spokesperson has also said technical failure appeared to be the cause of the crash, but that an investigation was underway. The pilot and a trainee pilot were killed, as well as a civilian passing by in a car, he has confirmed. Experts say Iran has a poor air safety record, with repeated crashes, many involving US-built aircraft bought before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The United States, which broke diplomatic ties in 1980 after Iranian students took US diplomats hostage, has imposed sanctions on Iran, making it difficult for Tehran to buy spare parts for its military and civilian aircraft.
A large fire has destroyed a 5-story apartment building with around 50 units early on Monday, February 21, in the western Germany city of Essen, injuring at least 3 people according to the local fire department. Around 100 residents had to flee the building after being woken up by the fire in the middle of the night. The flames were reportedly fanned by the storm Antonia. Residents described a chaotic scene that began at approximately 2 a.m. as someone yelled, "Fire! Fire!" prompting people to leave their homes as quickly as possible. Spokesman Christopher Riese has said residents have raised the alarm at 2:15 a.m. and that when the first firefighters had reached the scene, the fire had already spread at a very high speed over a large area of the building. Those who were injured have suffered from gas poisoning and were taken to the hospital. The fire took place in the West Viertel neighborhood, which lies directly west of the Essen city center. The cause is still unknown, but police have said that as soon as the blaze is brought under control, an investigation will be carried out. 3 people have been reported injured by the fire so far due to smoke inhalation. Eyewitnesses say that the fire spread within the span of 20 minutes. The flames were reportedly fueled in a large part by strong winds from the storm Antonia, which battered parts of western and southern Germany on Sunday night. Antonia is the 3rd severe weather event in Germany in less than a week.
And now for a look at news-making international headlines this Wednesday, 23rd February.
A massive plume of ash steam rose into the sky over Sicily on Monday, February 21st, as Italy's Mount Etna was back in action again. Large plumes of smoke, some 10 kilometers high, rose from a southeast crater of Europe's tallest and most active volcano, spewing ash and large clouds of smoke into the sky over the surrounding villages. The volcano's activity and the consequent ash precipitation caused the shutting down of the nearby Catania airport. The 3,330-meter-high volcano can cause spectacular views several times a year, spewing lava and ash high over the Mediterranean island but rarely causing damage, while the eruptions themselves do not put the local population at risk. The southeastern crater is at the epicenter of the activity that started on February 16 and has caused activity from the volcano multiple times in the past weeks.
Greece's fire service released a video on Monday, February the 21st, of the damage from the fire that ripped through the passenger ferry travelling from Greece to Italy and claiming the life of one passenger. Rows of burned trucks could be seen inside the ferry while rescue teams walked through the charred and melted walls of the garage wearing gas masks. Late on Sunday, February the 20th, the body of one passenger who was listed as missing was found, the first reported fatality in the disaster. The dead man was found in the cabin of the truck in the ship's hold and had suffered serious burns, a fire brigade official has confirmed. Another 10 people, all Bulgarian, Turkish and Greek nationals, are still missing according to the Coast Guard. At least 281 people out of 292 were rescued on Friday when the fire was erupted off Corfu in the London Sea. Many of the passengers were truck owners or delivering transport goods through Europe. Anxious relatives of those missing have watched as corpses have been transferred from the port of Corfu Island from the ferry. Some relatives have gathered at the port as they await news about their loved ones. The ferry has been on its way to the Italian port of Brindisi from Igomasta in Greece, where it was engulfed by flames. Early on Sunday, rescue teams found a survivor, a man from Belarus, at the stern of the ferry, according to Coast Guard, reviving hopes that other missing passengers could be still found alive. Italy-based company that operates the ferry has said that the fire started in the hold where vehicles were parked. The ship's captain and 2 engineers were arrested on Friday, but were released at the same day, authorities has also said.
About 60 people were killed on Monday and more than 100 injured in an explosion at an informal gold mining site in southwest Burkina Faso. The explosion was believed to have been caused by chemicals used to treat gold that were stocked at the site. "I saw bodies everywhere. It was horrible," recalled Sansan Kambu, a forest ranger who was at the site during the explosion. The first blast has happened about 2 p.m., with more explosions following as people ran for their lives. A large blast site of felled trees and declimated tin houses and bodies lay on the ground, covered by plastic sheets. Burkina Faso is the fastest growing gold producer in Africa and currently the 5th largest on the continent, with gold being the country's most important export. The industry employs about 1.5 million people and was about 2 billion in 2019. It was not clear exactly what kind of gold mining went on at the site. Burkina Faso is home to some major gold mines run by international companies, but also to hundreds of smaller informal sites that operate without oversight of regulation. Children frequently work in these so-called artisanal mines. Accidents are common. Burkina Faso, one of the world's least developed countries, is also under attack from Islamist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State who seek control of mining sites as a means to fund their violent attacks.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
On the occasion of the 43rd anniversary of the reunion between Prime Minister Hun Sen and his wife, First Lady Bunrani Hun Sen, the Prime Minister shared some unknown details behind the reunion in a message he posted on his Facebook page. The Prime Minister recalled the painful story of the difficult history he shared with his wife. He wrote saying, "On the evening of 24th February 1979, I was reunited with my wife and children after our separation on 20th June 1977, at a time when my wife was 5 months pregnant. The reunion was happy because we were still alive and able to meet each other again. For me, I was even happier to know that I had a son and that I had become his father. Unfortunately for me, my son refused to call me father, and even more difficult, he refused to let me get close to his mother. Manette had just weaned a few weeks before coming to see me. Rani told me that on the afternoon on the day of the Niak Lung ferry crossing on the way to Phnom Penh, Manette saw people selling bread. He was so hungry and he wanted to eat it, but my wife, Sinat, my younger sister, and other 2 friends who drove them on a bike to Phnom Penh had no money or anything to buy this bread. Manette, this poor baby, just swallowed his saliva and looked at his mother, who was in tears feeling sorry for him. After dinner, I heard about the bread story and gave around 10 candies I had to my son. Manette accepted it, but then threw it away because he did not know what candy was. I took the candy out of its cover and gave it to Manette, but he pushed my hand away. Only when I ate the candy, Manette then realized that it was something you could eat. Manette ate the candy without removing its plastic cover, then my wife removed it for him, but she only let him eat 2 candies because she was afraid that he would get sick. This is the story of the children of the Pol Pot regime who never got food or toys." Prime Minister Hun Sen further described how his son, Hun Manette, continued to call him uncle for more than a month before finally learning to call him his father. He described this story by writing, "At around 9 p.m. on 24th February 1979, my wife let Manette sleep on her arm on the bed, which was a habit he had from before. After a while, I went to bed with my wife, and suddenly Manette cried and chased me away. When I got out of bed, Manette stopped crying. I had to sit and wait for Manette to fall asleep before daring to get in the bed. I kept doing this for about 3 weeks. One day, I tried to joke around with my wife by ignoring Manette and hiding under a blanket with her. After that, we could not hear Manette crying or any other sounds from him. When we could not hear any sounds, we removed the blanket and saw that the child had disappeared. We opened the door to look for him outside the room, but we could not find him. But then we found him lying under the bed with an unhappy face. The next day, we tried to play with him again. This time, Manette did not cry, did not run away, but climbed on his parents' back on top of the blanket. From then on, Manette started calling me Dad." Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed that he hopes this incident will be able to be made into a scene in the movie Sun Under the Full Moon, which is currently being filmed and in production. He stated, "My wife and I have raised 5 children, and we have never had a nanny. Everything we've done ourselves for our children. Because the story of the Sun Under the Full Moon is being filmed, I hope this anecdote can be made into some scenes as well." The Prime Minister of Malaysia met with Prime Minister Hun Sen on Thursday morning to hold a meeting to discuss bilateral relations and other fields of common interest. During the meeting, the 2 prime ministers pledged their commitment to strengthening cooperation in the fields of human resource development, employment, digital economy, and green economy in order to achieve long-term welfare growth and sustainable development for the benefit of both countries. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
At the meeting between the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob, and Prime Minister Hun Sen on Thursday morning, the 2 leaders agreed to further promote bilateral trade, investment, health, tourism, science and technology, and people-to-people contacts in order to promote economic recovery after the COVID-19 crisis. To achieve this, the two prime ministers agreed to explore the possibility of establishing a partnership and sisterhood between Sihanoukville and Siem Reap with other cities in Malaysia as well. The two prime ministers further encouraged businesses and investors to seek more business and investment opportunities in both countries, with agreements on avoiding double taxation and preventing tax evasion related to income tax between the two countries, which came into force on January 1st, 2021.
The president of the Cambodian Red Cross and the outstanding national figure of the Joint Action Plan of the United Nations Secretary-General, First Lady Bunrani Hun Sen, has called on all pregnant women in Cambodia to consult a doctor or midwife at their nearest health center or hospital on a regular basis, at least 4 times during their pregnancy, and to get vaccinated as directed by medical professionals. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more details.
In a message released by First Lady Bunrani Hun Sen for the occasion of the National Day of Maternal and Child Health on Monday, February 21st, under the theme Strengthening the Provision of Reproductive Health Services, Maternal and Child Health, and the Provision of COVID-19 Vaccines to Pregnant Women and Mothers who are breastfeeding, the First Lady said that the field of maternal, infant, and child health has been impacted by the decline in the number of women at childbearing age in the population and the decrease in the number of pregnant women who receive regular health checkups, maternity care, and postpartum care. The First Lady, along with the Cambodian Red Cross, actively educate people on the benefits of having at least 4 health checkups during pregnancy, undergoing childbirth at the health center or hospital, conducting regular maternal and child health examinations, receiving postpartum care, fulfilling the required vaccination of children, including for the COVID-19 vaccine, and also on the prevention of transmitting HIV or syphilis from mother to child. The First Lady encourages all mothers to breastfeed their babies from the time of their birth until they are 6 months old and ready to start taking in other foods. She further calls on mothers to take their babies to the hospital immediately if they show any signs of respiratory infection, diarrhea, or other diseases, to use contraception, and to especially not forget to implement the 3 do's and 3 don'ts COVID-19 prevention measures. In 2021, the content of such key messages were reported to have reached 8,498 pregnant women and children, and 2,064 women were reported to have received postpartum livelihood support. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Cambodian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn, said at the Ministerial Forum for Indo-Pacific Cooperation in Paris, Cambodia as the 2022 ASEAN chair sees multilateralism as a key mechanism for peace and development, while many complex problems continue to plague the world. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
Speaking at the Ministerial Forum for Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific held in Paris, France on Tuesday, February 22nd, Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn said that both ASEAN and European Union see multilateralism as a mechanism for peace and development with regard to the rapidly changing world, which encompasses geopolitical competition, other complex regional hotspots, the COVID-19 pandemic, and climate change. He expressed satisfaction with the promotion of the ASEAN-EU strategic partnership and said he looked forward to the ASEAN-EU Anniversary Summit held this year to celebrate the 45th anniversary of the dialogue partnership. He said increasing economic interdependence will reduce the risk of conflict, and those countries need to further strengthen regional and inter-regional economic cooperation. He also held the completion of the ASEAN-EU Comprehensive Air Transport Agreement and said he looked forward to the future achievement of the ASEAN-EU Free Trade Agreement. The Cambodian Foreign Minister also shared the ASEAN concept of developing the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Perspective, AOIP, believing that this perspective could be a platform to facilitate complementarity among the various reforms of the Indo-Pacific strategy to achieve the common goal of maintaining peace and stability and bringing prosperity to the people. Minister Prak Sokhonn also briefed the International Forum on Peace and Security Concerns in ASEAN, such as the ongoing issue with Myanmar. The plenary session was followed by 3 roundtables on connectivity and digital technology, global challenges, including climate, biodiversity, oceans and health, and security and defense issues. Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn attended the roundtable discussion on security and defense and reiterated Cambodia's position in modernize the Ream naval base for the purpose of national defense in accordance with the Cambodian constitutions. The 2022 Ministerial Forum for Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific was attended by foreign ministers from 30 EU member states and Indo-Pacific countries. During the plenary session, the leaders discussed various aspects of the Indo-Pacific, reflecting the views of the EU, ASEAN, and Indo-Pacific countries. Leaders in the talk also expressed common concerns about binary worldview that could lead to confrontation, competition, and tension. They suggested that there should be a point where Europe and the Indo-Pacific countries could work together to provide multilateral options for regional order based on the rule of the law and open to the interests of peace, security, stability, and prosperity. In this regard, ASEAN is recognized as a central player in the Indo-Pacific, and the participating leaders expressed the view that ASEAN and Europe should make efforts to seek complementary and integrated ASEAN perspectives on the Indo-Pacific and EU strategy for Indo-Pacific cooperation, especially in areas of practical cooperation such as connectivity, sustainable development, digital transformation, climate change, economic recovery, health and safety, maritime cooperation, and biodiversity protection. Dekanin, EAC News.
Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn expressed great regret over the geopolitical rivalry between the United States and China in the South China Sea, which he said has affected countries in the region, including Cambodia. EAC News reporter Robin Lim has more details.
Addressing the Ministerial Forum for the Indo-Pacific Cooperation in Paris, France on Tuesday, 22 February, Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhonn said that the South China Sea is indeed an area that is a mix of both great importance and interest which is clearly dangerous. He added that the countries that should be involved are the countries that are in dispute with China over sovereignty in this part of the sea, despite the legal and historical arguments raised for their claims. Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn added that although Cambodia has not had any disputes over the sea, the United States has dragged Cambodia into the issue. In a statement issued on the night of Wednesday, 23 February, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs quoted Prak Sokhonn saying, "Because of everything China does in the region, it is closely monitored and analyzed by the United States. Even the agreement between Cambodia and China on the rehabilitation and modernization of the Riem naval base has been at the center of allegations, placing pressure at the point of intimidation. While the base renovation work is underway, we have already been accused of giving China a monopoly on the base." He further stated at the forum in France with ministers from more than 30 European and Indo-Pacific member states that Cambodia would not allow foreign military presence on its territory and would also not send any Cambodian troops to other countries except under the auspice of the United Nations through peacekeeping missions. The foreign minister added that the Riem naval base is a small base surrounded by hotels and tourist sites, which has no purpose other than the protection of the sea and the sovereignty of Cambodia's territorial integrity. He said, "As a sovereign country, Cambodia has every right to choose the most effective means to protect our nation, but we will do so with the utmost respect for our constitution." In November 2021, the United States blacklisted 2 Cambodian generals, the Director General of Technical Equipment of the Ministry of Defense, Chao Pirun, and Navy Commander Thi Vinh. The U.S. enforced the Global Magnitsky Penal Code over dissatisfaction of its aid base being destroyed at the Riem naval base by the Cambodian side. After the sanctions were imposed, both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense came out to state that the arrangement at the Riem sea base is only a modernization of the base, and Cambodia has always been transparent with the United States over such changes. But the U.S. still takes this opportunity as an excuse to oppress Cambodia again and again for personal gain and profit in an ongoing geopolitical competition. Robin Lim, EAC News.
The Ministry of Health recently announced the launch of the vaccine campaign for children aged 3 to 5, beginning from Wednesday, 23rd February. EAC News visited a vaccine center to interview some parents on why they brought their children to get vaccinated and how they feel now that their children can be protected against COVID-19 as well. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has the story.
After Prime Minister Hun Sen announced that many children have been infected with the COVID-19 Omicron variant, which continued to spread very fast within the community, he ordered the National Vaccination Commission and the Relevant Authority to coordinate the campaign for children aged 3 to 5 as soon as possible, for the safety of children and out of concern for the impact on public health. The Ministry of Health had now launched the vaccination campaign for children aged 3 to 5 on Wednesday, 23 February, in an attempt to curb the spread of Omicron and reduce the number of infection among children. Chuang Chanda, who is a mother of the twin girls, said she feels happy about the government decision to vaccinate for children.
I brought my child to get vaccinated and be protected from COVID-19. I feel happy that the government has good intentions by allowing vaccination for kids to allow for their immune systems to be strengthened against this disease so that they can go wherever they want with more ease, especially back to school.
Mithisa also expressed his gratitude to the government.
I
think this vaccination is intended to fight against COVID-19 virus and prevent the further spread of COVID-19. I feel happy that the government has thought about children's health problems in the context of COVID-19, and I am also thankful to the government for always bringing enough vaccines to fight against the spread of the new COVID-19 variant.
Utpanat is a young mother who feels very happy bringing her child to get vaccinated. I am happy to bring my child to get vaccinated. I also want my child to get protected from the COVID-19 disease. P, a grandma who is worried about the virus spreading and also warned her grandson to avoid catching the disease, expressed her relief.
Because this disease is spreading so fast, we have to get vaccinated to protect ourselves. When they launched this vaccination campaign for kids, I was so happy because it will help my kid avoid becoming affected by the disease. Thank you to the government for helping us all to get fully vaccinated.
Bunni is a father who also feels relief after bringing his child to get vaccinated.
I'm happy because after getting vaccinated, we can worry less about COVID-19 infection. Thank you to the royal government, including the Prime Minister, for providing COVID-19 vaccines for all citizens and children to prevent the further spread of the disease.
There are currently more than 700,000 children aged 3 to 5 in Cambodia. According to the report of the Ministry of National Defense and the Ministry of Health, as of 23 February, Cambodia has vaccinated 14.4 million people, which is 90.24% of the country's 60 million people. Sripokong, EAC News.
On Thursday morning, the Cambodian Mine Action and Victim Assistance Authority celebrated the 23rd anniversary of the National Mine Awareness Day in Previhir Province, recognizing the importance of mine safety awareness in order to further promote education on the dangers of landmines, cluster munitions, and explosive remnants of war in all its forms. EAC News reporter Tekanin has more.
The first deputy head of the Cambodian Mine Action and the Victim Assistance Authority, Senior Minister Lee Thoi, said that this was the second time that the royal government of Cambodia has selected Previhir Province for the location of the official celebrations for this national day since 2016. According to data collected until now, an area of 143 square kilometers has been cleared of 29,746 anti-personnel mines, 440 anti-tank mines, and 82,360 explosive remnants of war. Additionally, 876,225 beneficiaries have received safe land to live on. Demining efforts in Cambodia.
The 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen, has called for dialogue and a peaceful solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict after Russia launched a large-scale attack on Ukraine on Thursday. EAC News reporter Robin Lim has more.
Speaking at a press conference following a meeting with the Prime Minister of Malaysia on Thursday, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that he and the Malaysian Prime Minister, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob, had privately discussed the situation in Ukraine and affirmed that Cambodia wants to see a peaceful solution to the crisis. He said, "The Prime Minister of Malaysia and I have quietly discussed the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and I have agreed to call for dialogue and a peaceful solution." Just before dawn on Thursday, Russia fired several missiles at various Ukrainian cities and deployed troops off the southern coast of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday morning that he had decided to carry out a special military operation in the Donbas region blocked by Ukrainian separatists. However, he reiterated that Russia had no plans to occupy Ukraine. According to ongoing reports, Russia has so far destroyed all of Ukraine's air defenses and seized an air base just 30 kilometers from the capital. Robin Lim, EAC News.
The Minister of Tourism and Chairman of the Working Group for the Restoration and Promotion of Tourism in Cambodia in and after the COVID-19 crisis, Thong Khon, chaired the second interministerial meeting of the Executive Working Group to assess and manage safe tourism destinations in Siem Reap with the participation of representatives of the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Environment, Secretariat of State for Civil Aviation, General Department of Immigration, Apsara Authority, and the Siem Reap Provincial Administration, led by the Governor of Siem Reap, Thi Seha. EAC News reporter Sraipo Kong has the details.
The second meeting was held to assess and manage safe tourism destinations in Siem Reap, which are the priority destinations in Cambodia, as the new Omicron variant is making the COVID-19 outbreak reach a new stage in the country. Minister Thong Khon stated that the identification of areas or destinations for safe tourism must be based on the four achievement indicators. First, the rate of vaccination aimed at building community immunity. Second, the rate of COVID-19 patients with moderate and severe cases, along with the COVID-19 mortality rate. Third, the ability to respond, treat, and manage the potential risk of the new Omicron strain. And fourth, the readiness of the tourism industry. In addition, after receiving a request for this matter during the meeting, Minister Thong Khon decided to take up the proposal on the reopening of issuing visa on arrival for tourists arriving by air or sea. He said that they must first follow health policy to request the review and approval of this proposal from the Executive Committee and the Royal Government. Srepokong, EAC News.
During the Malaysian Prime Minister's visit, he laid a wreath at the Independence Monument paying tribute to Cambodian heroes of the past, and also paid his respects at the Royal Memorial Monument of the late King Father Norodom Sihanouk. He will also pay courtesy calls to His Majesty the King Norodom Sihamoni at the Royal Palace and the President of the Senate Sai Chum and the President of the National Assembly Heng Samrin.
មេបញ្ជាការកូនយុទ្ធនៃកងយុទ្ធពលខេមរៈគុំបិនលោកក្រុមអញ្ជើញឲ្យដល់ត្រួតពល
The Malaysian Prime Minister met with Prime Minister Hun Sen on the morning of Thursday, 24th February, to hold a meeting to discuss in-depth cooperation in various fields within both bilateral and multilateral frameworks. The two leaders exchanged views on regional and international issues of common interest and concern, both in the spirit of long-term friendship, solidarity, and mutual understanding. The Prime Minister of Malaysia congratulated Prime Minister Hun Sen on receiving the Sun Hak Peace Prize in 2022 and commended the royal government of Cambodia for its remarkable progress in national development. He also expressed satisfaction that the two countries were able to control the spread of COVID-19 well through an effective national COVID-19 vaccination campaign. Both sides praised each other for their determination to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic and said impact of high rates of vaccination will pave the way for a speedy recovery in all areas, especially the economy. Both sides also highlighted the positive economic growth in 2021, with Malaysia recording a 3.5% growth and Cambodia 3%, with both countries also projected to have even higher growth rates in 2022. The royal government of Cambodia has expressed its thanks to the Malaysian government, the Malaysian embassy in Phnom Penh, and the various Malaysian companies and community members in Cambodia for their generous contributions to the fight against COVID-19. The prime ministers of the two countries also expressed their appreciation for the close and strong ties they hold, as well as the mutually beneficial cooperation between both Cambodia and Malaysia over the last 6.5 decades. Both sides affirmed they will continue to enhance ties at all levels and strengthen people-to-people contacts to deepen mutual understanding and friendship. The two leaders agreed to further boost bilateral trade, investment, health tourism, science and technology, and people-to-people contacts in order to boost economic recovery after the COVID-19 crisis. To achieve this, the two prime ministers agreed to explore the possibility of establishing partnerships and sisterhoods between the cities of Sihanoukville and Siem Reap with cities in Malaysia. The two prime ministers pledged to strengthen cooperation in the fields of human resource development, employment, digital economy, and green economy to achieve long-term welfare, growth, and sustainable development for the benefit of both countries' peoples. The two prime ministers encouraged businesses and investors to seek more business and investment opportunities in both countries, with agreements on avoiding double taxation and preventing tax evasion. The Malaysian side expressed interest in seeking business cooperation in the fields of information and communication technology, financial technology, and cybersecurity in Cambodia. Both sides also prioritized the strengthening of small and medium enterprises and startups, recalling the agreement made between MRANTI and Impact Hub Phnom Penh, which promote business startups and ventures of young entrepreneurs in both countries. The Malaysian side affirmed that they will continue to provide opportunities for Cambodian civil servants to participate in training and capacity-building courses through the Malaysia Technical Cooperation Program and the Malaysian Defense Cooperation Program. The Prime Minister of Malaysia reaffirmed his full support for Cambodia as the chair of ASEAN in 2022 under the theme ASEAN Working Together, Addressing All Challenges. The two leaders agreed to continue to work closely to strengthen the ASEAN community and address regional and international issues within the ASEAN framework, as well as through multilateral mechanisms, for the common goal of maintaining the ASEAN Commonwealth, unity, peace, stability, sustainable development, and prosperity in the region and the world. Additionally, the two leaders exchanged views on regional and international issues of common interest and concern, such as Myanmar, the South China Sea, and other geopolitical rivalries between superpowers. They both agreed that it is essential to ensure the effective and timely implementation of the ASEAN 5-point consensus. Malaysia has also expressed its full support for the work of the ASEAN Special Envoy on the work of the ASEAN Chair on Myanmar and looks forward to the Special Envoy's first visit to Myanmar. The two leaders reaffirmed the full and effective implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea and the speedy conclusion of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, which is effective and in line with international law, including the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The two leaders also encouraged the promotion of practical cooperation between ASEAN and its non-regional partners within the framework of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Initiative. The Prime Minister of Malaysia also mentioned the displacement of refugees from Rakhine State, including the Rohingya, in Myanmar during the talks, and along with Prime Minister Hun Sen, the two sides reaffirmed the importance of resolving the root causes of the conflict and the voluntary safe repatriation of all displaced refugees with dignity. Finally, the Prime Minister of Malaysia extended an official invite to Prime Minister Hun Sen to pay an official state visit to Malaysia to celebrate the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed his deep gratitude and accepted the invitation to pay an official visit to Malaysia at an appropriate time. The Phnom Penh Capital Administration has issued a press release dismissing allegations made by Naga World protesters regarding irregularities in administrative measures made against them. These allegations include being quarantined outside quarantine center rooms, the use of double standards in the implementation of health measures, and sexual harassment of protesters. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the details.
All allegations made by protest have been dismissed by the Phnom Penh Municipal Administration in the press release and two notices released on Thursday night. The administration stated it was a letter the protesters were sent to a quarantine centre due to concerns about the spread of COVID-19 within the local community. The letter wrote regarding the invitation of protesters to the quarantine centre in Phnom Penh from the 21st to the 24th of February 2022. The medical team has found a series of positive cases among the protesters. This proves that the protesters did not do the right thing according to the doctor's instructions. Therefore, the authorities must take continuous action to ensure that all protesters do not test positive for COVID-19 before allowing them to gather in public places, in accordance with the law of the peaceful demonstrations and other health measures that have been put in place. The Phnom Penh Municipal Administration has expressed outrage after receiving reports alleging that the authorities have used violence and sexual harassment towards female protesters. The administration asks, is it possible that authorities can commit such immoral acts in front of many people, businesses, people and travellers in the city who have mobile phone cameras, as well as other authorities performing their duties in place? The administration added that such cases must have clear evidence to justify taking action against individuals who have committed wrongdoings. In order to be held accountable before the law, they further call on all journalists and issues to stop publishing information which they say is not true. Regarding the measures taken against the protesters, the Phnom Penh Municipal Administration has decided to take legal action and place the fines on protesters who are stubborn and violate the law related to the prevention of communicable diseases. So far, at least 54 protesters have been transferred to Phnom Penh Quarantine Centre. The administration has further stated that there are currently 3 protesters who have been fined 1 million riel, or roughly $250. Each is in accordance with the law on the health measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other deadly and dangerous infection diseases. They state that the same measures will be taken against other protesters who are found guilty. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
In the past week, fans around Cambodia have been on high alert for sightings of Angelina Jolie as she arrived in the kingdom recently for work related to the Maddox Jolie Pitt Foundation, which she founded in 2003 and named after her son. She has so far been spotted in Angkor Wat and has also met with the Minister of Environment, Sai Samal. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more details.
Angelina Jolie, the revered Hollywood filmmaker, mother, and Cambodian citizen, is currently in Cambodia for a work-related visit. She first fell in love with Cambodia in 2000 when she came to film The Tomb Raider and adopted her first son, Mad Dogs. Since arriving in the kingdom, Angelina Jolie has met with the Minister of Environment, Sai Som Al, on Thursday, February 24th, to discuss the protection and conservation of natural resources in Cambodia. Minister Sai Som Al highlighted the continued cooperation and support of the Ministry of Environment for the conservation project initiated by the actress. According to a post made by the actress on her official Instagram page, she has said that she can feel her soul rejuvenating after being in Cambodia for a few days and is happy to be reunited with friends and colleagues at Mad Dog's Jolie Pit Foundation in Som Lot district. She added that the MJP Foundation is run by an entirely local team who runs programs for health and education and conservation. And during her time in the kingdom, she has spent some time with forest rangers discussing land encroachment, poaching, and mapping patrol routes. The MJP Foundation was founded in 2003 to protect endangered wildlife and forests and to provide support to the community in the Som Lot protected area. Since 2006, MJP has expanded its work to include other projects such as agriculture, education, gender equality, and healthcare. For more information on the foundation, check out their website mjp-foundation.org. Dekanin, EAC News.
Rama International Society, in collaboration with the Reform and Development Society Association and with the participation of leaders and representatives of the organization, distributed humanitarian donations to 420 Cambodian families in Kilometer 9 District, Phnom Penh on Friday morning. EAC News reporter Straipor Kong has more.
The senior minister in charge of special mission and the chairman of the Phnom Penh Islamic Center, Osman Hassan, was present at the gift distribution and said that the donations were being made to Cambodians without regard to religion.
I'm very thankful for all the donations made in the past. I remember in 1996 and 1997, large countries were requesting Prime Minister Hun Sen to reduce the acceptance of donations from the Middle East as well as the Islamic countries. The Prime Minister replied that if I don't provide donations to people in need and want him to close the door and not receive aid from Islamic countries, then he would not agree. So he kept the door open for donations from other Islamic countries.
Ali Arashid, the head of the Cambodian office at Rama International Society, said the organization distributes donations worldwide to 27 countries, including Cambodia.
Rama's International Society distributes donations worldwide to 27 countries, including Cambodia, and on the 25th and 26th of February, this is also the 61st National Day of Kuwait. For this occasion, we brought donations to the people of Cambodia, which reflects the sincerities of the Kuwaitis people. And the associations will continue to have Cambodia forever.
At the ceremony, 50-year-old Sasanas expressed her joy at receiving the donations.
When I received the donation, I was excited and happy to be able to support my poor family. I would especially like to thank all the donors and the government for their help.
Meanwhile, 68-year-old Lakari has a physical disability and said that this gift will help to facilitate his needs.
I am very happy to receive donations from the people of Kuwait who have helped the poor in Cambodia and which has also helped to alleviate my needs.
The president of the Youth Gate organization, Marth Amiros, affirmed that the distribution of gifts is an annual celebration of the people of Kuwait to the people of other countries and hope that in the future there will be participation from other Arab countries as well. Nasser Hassan Khalil Abu Jaweed, a representative of Rama International Society in Cambodia, also thanked the donors and the people of Kuwait for their assistance to Cambodia, and thanked the Kuwaiti embassy in Cambodia as well as the royal government for facilitating the association project as well.
في يوم 25 فبراير أقول
On Kuwait National Day, I would like to thank all the donors and people of Kuwait who have continued to assist Cambodia in all projects so far. And I would also like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kuwait, the Kuwait Ambassador to Cambodia, and thank to you, to the royal government for always facilitating all the projects of Rama International Society in Cambodia.
Rama International Society donations are distributed as humanitarian gifts to the people of 23 countries, with more than 650,000 people receiving donations on the 61st anniversary of Kuwait independence. From 25 to 26 February 2022, the distribution of humanitarian donations to Cambodia is divided into 6 areas: Phnom Penh, Kampong Chnang, Osat, Tabong Khmum, Kah and Kanda provinces. 420 families from each province received donations, adding up to a total of 2,520 families benefiting from donation pancake in Cambodia. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
Mexican armed forces have clashed with a group of mostly Cuban, Central American, Venezuelan, and Haitian migrants who were waiting for migratory documents in the southern city of Tapachula on Tuesday, February 22nd.
Migrants have said that a Mexican Migration Institute officer has appeared outside his agency's office and dropped on the floor documents that would grant them safe passage through the country. "You saw our papers scattered on the ground, as if we were dogs," Cuban migrant Yanni has said. "We are talking to the INM officer. He has passed through and threw the papers on the ground without explanations." Another Cuban migrant, Tony, has said that the INM officers have denied documents to around 2,000 Haitian migrants. Tension between the Mexican National Guards and migrants in Tapachula has increased because many migrants have remained in the city for several months waiting for their legal documents. Tens of thousands of migrants flee their countries each year in an attempt to reach the United States, but many of them also seek refuge and protection in Mexico. In early February, Mexico's National Human Rights Commission urged immigration authorities to speed up processes that would help nearly 2,000 migrants at the southern border to get documents to regularize their stay in Mexico or let them travel through the country without being detained.
The used tires that litter the back streets of cities and towns in Zambia might be an eyesore, but for one company, they're also an opportunity to make fuel that could slash the nation's energy import bill while cleaning up its trash. A Zambian company has started making diesel and petrol using tires and plastics, a project that could help slash the nation's $1.4 billion annual fuel import bill and clean up the environment.
The project by Zambia's Central African Renewable Energy Corporation has currently processed 1.5 tons of waste to make 600 to 700 liters of diesel and gasoline per day on a pilot basis. There's hardly enough to dent the country's mountains of rubbish or its $1.4 billion annual fuel import bill for the 140 million liters of petrol a day it consumes. But for Chief Executive Molinga, it's the start of something bigger. The gas that we are producing, the petrol and the diesel that we are producing is a much lower cost, or the production cost is so much lower than the normal diesel and petrol that you're getting from your filling stations, he has said, where workers loaded stacks of used tires into a furnace. The company is seeking $60 million in investment to raise daily fuel output to 400 tons of diesel, 125 tons of petrol, and 30 tons of liquefied petroleum gas, he said, at all roughly half the cost of imported fuel. Waste management is a serious challenge for Zambia, and if people are still using fuel, proponents argue it is better that it come from recycled waste. We are cleaning up the environment by taking out all the waste and we are converting it into energy, Molinga has said. Rubber is made of long chains of hydrocarbons that can be heated and broken down into something resembling crude oil, which is the case of synthetic rubber, is what they were to begin with. Several companies globally are investing in this process, which involves burning waste, rubber, and plastic in a reactor and then mixing it with a catalyst to produce diesel, gasoline, and LPG. Johnson Chikwanda of the local think tank Energy Forum Zambia has said the fuel project could drastically cut Zambia's fuel import bill, create jobs, and clean up the environment.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has said on Tuesday, February 22nd, that the Minsk peace agreement on Ukraine no longer existed, and there was nothing left to fulfill, but he blamed Kiev instead of Moscow for killing it off. He has made the comments at a news conference in Moscow on Wednesday after he formally recognized two separatist republics in eastern Ukraine as independent.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has said the Minsk agreements were killed long before the recognition of the People's Republics of Donbas, and not by Russia, not by representatives of these republics, but by the current Kiev authorities. The Russian president has stated that within the borders will Russia recognize these republics, but they have recognized them, which means they have recognized their fundamental documents, including the Constitution. And the Constitution spells out the borders within the Donetsk and Luhansk regions when they were part of Ukraine. But Russia expects, and Putin wants to emphasize, is that all controversial issues will be resolved during the negotiations between the Kiev authorities and the leadership of the two republics. He has added, regarding the use of armed forces abroad, Russia has signed agreements on Tuesday, and in these agreements, both with the Donetsk People's Republic and with the Luhansk People's Republic, there are corresponding paragraphs that say Russian government will provide these republics with appropriate military assistance. Regarding the conflict there, with this decision, Russia has made it clear that if necessary, they intend to fulfill their obligations. Putin has also mentioned that the most important point is the known degree of demilitarization of today's Ukraine, since this is the only objectively controlled factor that can be observed and reacted to. Everything else flips from today to tomorrow in either direction.
More than 100 people have died less than one day into Putin's assault. Ukraine's president has announced on Thursday night that 137 people have been killed and 316 wounded so far after Russia has launched a full-scale invasion on Ukraine by land, sea, and air. The current death toll includes both Ukrainian soldiers and civilians, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
As the night fell for the first time since Vladimir Putin has insisted on the all-out assault, heavy exchanges of fire were taking place in the regions of Sumy and Kharkiv and the northwest of Kherson and Odessa in the south, while Kiev has said Russian shelling was still underway in the eastern Donetsk region. Moscow's defense ministry has said ground forces have moved in from annexed Crimea and has claimed to have neutralized Ukraine's air defenses and have destroyed 11 airfields, with Russian troops also seizing an airbase just 25 miles from the capital center. Ukraine's air force is thought to have compromised roughly 200 aircraft. Russian forces have also reported attempts to take control of Ukraine's separate island, which lies in the Black Sea less than 30 miles from NATO member Romania, while seizing controls of the infamous Chernobyl nuclear plant, a move the Ukraine president has claimed was a declaration of war against the whole of Europe. President Zelensky has suggested that the missile blast, fighting and the rumble of the aircraft in his country were the sound of the new Iron Curtain, which has come down and is closing Russia off from the civilized world. Our national task is to make sure that the curtain does not fall across our land, the president has said. Zelensky has moved on Thursday to declare martial law, meaning the military will temporarily take control of Ukraine and severed all diplomatic ties with Russia. Hours prior to Vladimir Putin's invasion, Kiev's parliament has approved a law allowing citizens to bear firearms, while Ukraine's heads have called up reserves to the country's army. Ukraine's health minister, Viktor Velashko, has also said authorities were responding to the country's healthcare facilities to make room for the wounded in the hostilities. Despite Russians' claim that there was no threat to civil population, Moscow's bombardment was reportedly to have a fatality hit an apartment block near Kharkiv, and with some residents of the capital taking bomb shelters and the city subway system. Nobody believed that this war would start and that it would take Kiev directly. One man waiting on the night in the old Soviet metro station told the Associated Press, "I feel emotionally fatigued. None of it feels real."
Sorry to keep you waiting. The Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people of Ukraine. Without provocation, without justification, without necessity, This is a premeditated attack. This was never about a genuine security concerns on their part. It was always about naked aggression, about Putin's desire for empire by any means necessary, by bullying Russia's neighbors through coercion and corruption, by changing borders by force, and ultimately by choosing a war without a cause. Good afternoon. The Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people of Ukraine. He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, reestablish the former Soviet Union. That's what this is about. And I think that his ambitions are completely contrary to the place where the rest of the world has arrived. That Ukraine was about to invade and launch a war against Russia. And Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically. We will make sure of that. We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. That means every asset they have in America will be frozen. This includes VTB, the second largest bank. But this aggression cannot go unanswered. If it did, the consequences for America would be much worse. America stands up to bullies. We stand up for freedom. This is who we are. But to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen to be part of the global economy. We'll limit their ability to do that. We're going to stunt the ability to finance and grow the Russian military. We're going to impose and we're going to impair their ability to compete in high-tech 21st century economy. We've already seen the impact of our actions on Russia's currency and the ruble, which early today hit its weakest level ever in history. The Russia stock market plunged today. The Russian government borrowing rate spiked by over 15%. In today's actions, we've now sanctioned Russian banks that together hold around $1 trillion in assets, have also been stepping up, adding the other allies, the rest of NATO, adding their own forces and capabilities. As promised, we're also adding the names to the list of Russian elites and their family members that we're sanctioning as well. Collective defense. And today, within hours of Russia's unleashing its assault, some of the most powerful impacts our actions will come over time as we squeeze Russia's access to finances and technology for strategic sectors of its economy and degrade its industrial capacity for years to come. Companies with assets that exceed $1.4 trillion. The United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. And the good news is, NATO is more united and more determined than ever. On Tuesday, in response to Russia's aggressive action, including its troop presence, we have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. Putin will be a pariah on the international stage. Any nation that counts Russia propaganda outlets will keep trying to hide the truth and claim success for its military operation against a made-up threat. But history has shown, time and again, how swift gains in territory eventually give way to grinding occupations. Stand down. He's going to test the resolve of the West to see if we stay together. And when the history of this era is written, Putin's choice to make a totally unjustifiable war on Ukraine will have left Russia weaker and the rest of the world stronger.
Thank you, President Biden. If sanctions cannot stop President Putin,
NATO is more united than it's ever been, and I have no plans to talk with Putin. The idea, you don't see a whole lot of people coming to his defense. The sanctions that we've proposed on all their banks have of equal consequence, maybe more consequence than SWIFT, number one. Number two, it is always an option, but right now that's not the position that the rest of Europe wishes to take. Does the Defense Department of the United States...
So India is one of your major defense partners.
The notion that this is going to last for a long time is highly unlikely as long as we continue to stay resolved in imposing the sanctions we're going to impose on Russia, period.
You recently said that the idea of personally sanctioning President Putin was on the table. Is that a step that you're prepared to take? And if not...
It's not a bluff, it's on the table. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said on Wednesday, February 23rd, she wanted to end the bloc's dependence on Russian gas, hoping a move towards renewables would make it more independent. Speaking before a meeting with Norway's Prime Minister, a non-European Union member state which supplies gas to the EU, she has accused Russia of using energy in a geopolitical struggle with the West and with Ukraine. Russia has instrumentalized energy over the last month, if not to say years, to put pressure not only on Ukraine but also the European Union. And the European Union is now determined to get out of dependency of Russian gas. On Tuesday, Germany halted the Nord Stream 2 Baltic Sea gas pipeline project, designed to double the flow of Russian gas, in response to the Kremlin's recognition of the breakaway Ukrainian regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. Russia currently supplies about 40% of Europe's natural gas.
Russia is attacking Ukraine, putting a lot of pressure since many, many years, having a hybrid war in Ukraine. But it's more than that. It is not only Russia that created this crisis by violating international law, by breaching any kind of commitments towards the integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. It's also a time of crisis where autocracies are challenging democracies. And therefore, it's wonderful to have you as a like-minded partner here. As we've seen, Russia has instrumentalized energy over the past month, if not to say years, to put pressure not only on Ukraine but also on the European Union. And we are now really determined to get out of the dependency of Russian gas. And therefore, it's wonderful to have you here. You are a reliable supplier of gas.
And my message coming here to Brussels today is that Norway will play its part, but we also have something valuable to contribute. Reliability on gas, an active industrial partner on hydrogen, carbon capture, new batteries, ocean wind, all these new interesting engaging industrial prospects that we can do together. We can cut emissions and create jobs.
And please.
Thank you.
And now for a look at news-making international headlines this Friday, 25th February.
Roads and streets were inundated by widespread flooding in Australia's Sunshine Coast on Wednesday, February 23, after torrential rainfall has pummeled southeast Queensland. Floodwater rose to 4.6 feet in some parts of Sunshine Coast, covering roads and stranding vehicles, as rescue personnel were deployed to help with search and rescue. The body of a woman was found submerged in a vehicle and 10 people were reported missing. A missing father of 3 has been found dead in Queensland floodwaters, bringing death toll to 2 after his motorbike was located submerged in floods Thursday morning. It's believed Phil Lambert, 54, hadn't seen the rising flood when driving through Cedar Pocket in Gympie yesterday morning and was hit by a torrent of rushing water. Several more requiring rescue after periods of torrential rain. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued a statement warning of more severe weather for southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales overnight, which may cause flash flooding and record rainfalls.
Long lines of cars formed on the roads leading out of the capital Kiev on Thursday, February 24, after Russian forces invaded the country by land, air, and sea, confirming the worst fears of the West with the biggest attack by one state against another in Europe since World War II. I will take my children away and return. We will fight this off. Ukraine will win, no matter what. Alexander, one of the drivers hailing out of Kiev with his kids at the back of the car, has said. We hope it will not happen. It is unthinkable that a sane man would make such a decision, Sergei has said, adding to he felt confused and horrible when he realized the country was being invaded. Despite pessimism, most has remained defiant. The Russian Federation will not stop what they have started. They will do whatever they can to destroy us and our nation, but we will not let them do it, a passenger in one of the cars said. Russian missiles have rained down on Ukrainian cities. Ukraine reported columns of troops pouring across its borders into the eastern Chernihiv, Kharkiv, and Luhansk regions, and landing by sea at the port cities of Odessa and Mariupol in the south. Explosions could be heard before dawn in the capital Kiev. Gunfire rattled, sirens blared across the city, and the highway out became choked with traffic as residents tried to flee. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin's aim was to destroy his state.
A group of American truckers began a cross-country drive from California to Washington on Wednesday, February the 23rd, to protest coronavirus restrictions taking a cue from demonstrations that have paralysed Canada's capital, Ottawa, for weeks. More than 24 18-wheeler trucks, along with some 50 pickups and recreational vehicles, left Ardento, California, about 130 kilometres northwest of Los Angeles. The self-styled People's Convoy in the beginning of an 11-day trek to the Beltway, a major highway encircling the US capital, to demand and end the COVID-19 vaccine and mask requirements. Preparations are being made in Washington for the expected arrival of the convoy and other similar protests in coming days. The Pentagon said it approved 400 National Guard troops from the District of Columbia who will not carry out weapons to help traffic pace from Saturday through to March the 7th. About 50 technical vehicles were also approved to be placed in traffic posts. In addition, up to 300 National Guard troops from outside of Washington will assist at traffic posts if needed. The truckers are making their demands even as most US states have already eased many restrictions. In California, where the convoy begins, the state lifted universal mask requirements last week while requiring masks for vaccinated people only in high-risk areas such as public transit, schools and healthcare settings.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
A spectacular fireworks display brought an end to the Beijing Winter Olympics on Sunday, February 20th. Earlier, the Olympic flame had been doused, closing a Games that will be remembered for the extremes of its anti-COVID-19 measures and outrage over the doping scandal that enveloped 15-year-old Russian skating sensation Kamila Valieva.
Chinese President Xi Jinping was on hand for the snowflake-themed ceremony at the Bird's Nest Stadium, where the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach described the Beijing Games as truly exceptional before declaring them closed. The Beijing Games contained inside a closed loop were the second Olympics in 6 months to be deprived from COVID-19 as much of its festivity. They were also stalked by politics, with several countries staging a diplomat boycott over China's human rights record, and the spectre of invasion by Ukraine by Russia, with President Vladimir Putin attending the opening ceremony in a show of solidarity against the West with Xi. Still, China was spared any embarrassing protests by the competitors over its treatment of Uyghurs Muslim minority or anything else, and thousands of foreign journalists on hand were stuck inside the closed loop, unable to report more widely. Sunday night's ceremony was capped by a 90-second fireworks display that spelled out "One World, One Family," followed by a rendition of Auld Lang Syne. During the ceremony, Bach praised Beijing's organisers and made a call for unity as well as universal access to COVID-19 vaccines. "You embrace each other even if your countries are divided by conflict," he said. "The unifying power of the Olympic Games is stronger than the forces that want to divide us. You give peace and chance." The Chinese team drew cheers that grew louder when San Francisco-born freestyle skier Eileen Gu, who won 2 golds and a silver for China, was shown on screen. Later, a group of 365 people bade farewell with a glowing green willow twig, enacting a traditional Chinese gesture of regret over parting.
Cambodia has placed itself in an uncertain position after suffering a shocking loss to Timor-Leste. Cambodia was expecting to win the group phase on a high after picking up the full points in their first 2 matches.
It was not to be when defender Yu Safi headed in an own goal off a rifling shot from Filamengo da Costa in the 18th minute to hand Timor-Leste the victory. Timor-Leste qualified for the knockouts of the ongoing AFF U23 Championship after beating Cambodia 1-0 in their group stage encounter at the Morodok Tekno National Stadium in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Cambodia threw everything they had at their opponents well into the second half, but the Timor defense held their own as they fended off the onslaught for them to pick up their second full points. It was a very tough and difficult game as compared to our previous matches. We were not able to calm down and could not work our system, and that made things hard for us in the second half, said Cambodian head coach Hirose Ryu. Cambodia, backed by a roaring crowd, further upped the ante in the final 15 minutes of the game. Hirose Ryu introduced dependable forward Narong Kakada, Nisokri, and Sam Kim Heng in the mix, but the substitutes failed to have the desired impact. At the back of this win, Timor-Leste qualifies for the knockouts as Group A champions. However, Cambodia's fate hangs on by a thread as they now have to depend on the other results between in Group C for a probable semi-final berth.
Chelsea rediscovered some of their fluent attacking forms as they beat Lille 2-0 in the first leg of their Champions League last 16 tie on Tuesday. But the talk at Stamford Bridge was more about the striker who did not play than the ones who did.
Record-singing Romelu Lukaku sat on the beach as an unused substitute while fellow strikers Kai Havertz and Christian Pulisic claimed the goals that put the reigning champions Chelsea in the driving seat to advance to the quarterfinals. On Saturday against Crystal Palace, Lukaku had the fewest touches of the ball, 7, ever recorded for a player on the pitch for at least 90 minutes in the Premier League game since such data began to be collected in full in the 2003-04 season. That unwanted record added to the questions being asked about the Belgians' role in Thomas Tuchel's side, which has often looked more dangerous this season when Lukaku was absent with injury or due to COVID-19. Lukaku scored 24 league goals and provided 11 assists for Inter Milan last season to help them clinch the Series A title, and he got off to a good start in his second spell at Stamford Bridge after his move to London in August. He scored 3 goals in his first 3 Premier League games and linked up well with fellow strikers.
Yeah, every game is different. Every game is different. The focus was today on intensity, on high-speed game, and on also hard work against the ball, off the ball, to have an intensive teamwork. And Romelu struggled in the last games a little bit to deliver that. That's what I meant when I said I felt him a bit tired. Not only mentally tired, but also physically tired, which I can understand. He played like, I think since the Liverpool game, and he started every match for us, and were like some extra times in it as well. And yeah, it is like this. And then today we went for three other players too, and Kai is in a very good shape, full of confidence, and gives a lot of work rate and in high intensive meters to the team. And that was the decision today. For Sunday we have 4 days to decide and to recover, and of course he has every chance to play. Yeah, also was not the moment after the match where everybody was focused on the few touches that he had to put him right away into the next fire. It was the moment to take a step back. That was the decision, and that's it. But you can clearly see. I mean, we have now a strong win. We had a strong performance. It was a tough match, and almost every question is about Romelu. So the focus is huge. There are like 9 other players who did not play, and we should never forget that we consider this sport a team sport, and this is it. And then the 11 guys who play do everything to commit fully to what we plan and to commit fully to their teammates, and the guys from the bench have to do the same. And this is how it works. Especially at Chelsea and especially for us, and this is how we win football games.
Tuchel told reporters after the win over Lille that he had decided Lukaku needed a break after starting in a string of games recently. The focus was today on intensity, on a high-speed game, and hard work off the ball. The German coach said Romelu struggled in the last games to deliver that. Lukaku did score 2 of Chelsea's 3 goals during the Club World Cup tournaments that the Londoners won in Abu Dhabi earlier this month, but the threat posed by Havertz through Tuesday's defeat of Lille and his hard work rate suggested the German may get the nod ahead of the Belgian when Chelsea comes out of the tunnel at Wembley on Sunday for the League Cup final against Liverpool.
Ferrari is aiming for a return to competitiveness in 2022 with their SF75 Challenger, unveiled carrying the weight of history and expectation for the sport's oldest and most successful team.
They have crowned some of the sport's greatest, including Jan Manuel Fonego, Alberto Ascari, Niki Lauda and Michael Schumacher. But their last champion remains now retired Kimi Räikkönen, who won the title in 2007. Last year, the team, despite bouncing back from a dismal 2020 to take third in the constructors' standings without a win for the second season in a row. The Manalo-based squad have raced in every season of Formula One since the champion was founded in 1950 and have won more races and championships than anyone. Our objective in 2022 certainly is being back to being competitive, and being competitive means capable of winning races. Team principal Mattia Binotto told reporters following the car's launch. That's the way we see it at the moment, and I think we were pretty happy if we were in that position. Formula One is introducing its biggest rule shake-up in decades, with cars featuring revised aerodynamics and bigger 18-inch wheels aimed to improving the racing spectre. The new rules could shake up the established order and Ferrari, who unveiled a stunning new car known up with red and black livery in a throwback to the past and clearly eyed this season as an opportunity. What makes us confident about this year's car is the work I've seen in the past few months. It's never easy to know until you're really on the track for the qualifying of the year and see the final picture, but the feeling is good.
The U.S. women's national soccer team and the governing body, U.S. Soccer, have agreed to resolve the equal pay claims in litigation that have been pending since 2019, the two parties said on Tuesday, February 22nd.
We are pleased to announce that the contingent of the negotiation of the new collective bargaining agreement, we will resolve our long-standing dispute over equal pay and proudly stand together in the shared commitment to advance equally in soccer, US Soccer and USWNT said in a joint statement. The New York Times reported that under the terms of the agreement, players will receive $24 million and a pledge from the US Soccer to equalise pay for women's and men's national teams in all competitions, including the World Cup, in the next collective bargaining agreements. Getting to this day has not been easy. The US women's national team players achieved unprecedented success while working to achieve equal pay for themselves and future athletes, the joint statement added. Today we recognise the legacy of the past USWNT leaders who have helped to make this day possible, as well as all the women's and girls who follow. The Women's Cup winning team sued the governing body in 2019, seeking $66 million in damages under the Equal Pay Act, alleged gender discrimination in compensation, and nearly every other aspect of playing conditions. US Soccer urged the women's team had received more compensation than the men's team over the last decade. In May 2020, a United States District Court judge for the Central District of California threw out the players' claims for equal pay, but allowed their claims about playing conditions to go forward. The players reached a settlement on the conditions part of the lawsuit and had appealed against the wage decision portion.
Double world champion Fernando Alonso is heading into the Formula One season in an optimistic mood, with the Spaniard hoping the new 2022 rules can deliver enough of a shakeup to put his Alpine team in the fight at the front.
The 40-year-old returned to sport last year, signing from the same Estonia-based outfit with whom he won his two titles, 2005 and 2006, when they ran as Renault. But his sights have always been on set with 2022 rules overhaul, billed as the most sweeping in decades. I come back to the sport because of the regulation, said Alonso, at the launch of Alpine's 2022 Challenger in Paris, when asked if the new rules could be a game changer. So it's been 1 year and a half waiting for these cars. Formula One's new rules featuring complete redesign of the cars are aimed to delivering better racing. Together with more restrictive cost cap, they could put more teams in the mix at the front if they completely reset the competitive order. Renault-owned Alpine, however, tempting hope with realism. The team returned to the top step of the podium for the first time since the Australian Grand Prix in 2013, when racing as latest, when Alzone's top teammate Esteban Ocon took his maiden win in Hungary. But they finished fifth in the overall constructors' standings for the third year in succession. Their target is to be in a championship fight within 100 races, starting with the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix. The outfit beefed up their technical department last week, announcing the signing of Otmar Zanfer as their new team principal, who joins from rivals Aston Martin. At Monday's launch, Alpine Chief Executive Laurent Rossi said progress and momentum would be the key. The team had to aim for at least fifth in the standings again, he added, cautioning that their form relative to competition would only become evident once they hit the track. Alonso also scored a podium last year, and whose future beyond this season will hinge on how competitive the team can get. Said he was confident that they'll already take on 2022. I'm more optimistic than last year, probably because the new rules give you that hope that everything can change and you can be competitive from race one, he said.
Winter will come early to soccer stadiums in baking hot Qatar, when groundskeepers blast chilled air starting in September to ensure pitch turf thrives in the desert country for the World Cup.
Mimicking winter in the Gulf state, where temperatures can swelter at 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit, in the fall, is just one trick experts have introduced over the last 14 years to improve turf quality and increase the number of soccer pitches. An elite corps of groundskeepers now maintain 144 green, lush fields, 8 stadium pitches, and 136 training grounds. They blast chilled air through nozzles directly at the turf, tending luxuriant patches of green dotted amid the dun or grey of Qatar's desert and concrete. The weather conditions and the climate together with the level of performance criteria we have set for ourselves makes it extremely challenging to develop the product we need. But we succeeded, said Haitham Al-Sharif, a Sudanese civil engineer who has worked on Qatar's pitches since 2007. Preparing turf for the World Cup, being held for the first time in the Middle East, is environmentally costly.
Preparing and growing high quality sports turf is generally challenging, but here in Qatar it was a different level of challenge. The weather condition and the climate, together with the level of performance criteria we have set for ourselves, makes it extremely challenging to develop the product we need, but we succeeded. It's a significant challenge because the warm season grass doesn't really grow in winter. It doesn't die, but you don't get what we call the recovery. When you have wear and tear, you want the grass to keep growing to recover. The warm season grass usually goes dormant in winter. If you seed the pitch too early, you will have germination, but the winter grass will not really grow. It will actually die because it's too warm. So we are trying to balance all factors and choose the right time, and this is again an annual process.
Yeah, I'm proud of the whole project, but the grass is where the action is happening, especially during the event itself. But again, as a target for us is not to do any returfing during the event, and even after the event itself, we didn't have to do any returfing. So maintaining the quality and the grass with the performance and having a successful tournament without any impacts on the grass, which is the main field of action for the tournament for the players. We were very proud and very happy.
Qatar flies in 140 tons of grass seed annually from the United States on climate-controlled aircraft, Al-Sharif said, and pitches are watered with desalinated water in an energy-intensive process burning the country's wealth of natural gas. Each pitch requires 10,000 liters of desalinated water daily in winter and 50,000 liters in the summer, he added. The 28-day event begins in November at perhaps the most challenging time of the year for doable turf, as Qatar's weather transitions from searing summer to mild winter. Some grass varieties turn dormant as temperatures rise and winter ryegrass takes root, making adequate growth a challenge between matches. So, groundskeepers trigger winter in September, seeding pitches with ryegrass in a practice that has over the last 3 years yielded durable pitches. Qatar has also countered the risk of fungus and disease outbreaks with a maintenance regime involving chemical cocktails, grass mowers that vacuum debris, and an underground system that sucks excess moisture, said a UEFA pitch consultant. Qatar says it is prepared for any turf emergency. A 425 square meter reserve of grass, some 40 soccer pitches worth, is growing at a farm north of Doha. It can be harvested, trucked to a stadium, and laid down ready for play in as little as 8 hours, said Mohammed El Atwan, who worked as a project manager on Stadium 974. Organizers have declined to say how much the turf program has cost Qatar, a wealthy gas exporter that spent billions on infrastructure over the last decade to prepare for the event.
Fresh off the national team's victory in the Africa Cup of Nations this month, Senegal on Tuesday inaugurated a new 50,000-seat stadium at a ceremony attended by African and European heads of state and global sporting dignitaries.
The Turkish-built Abdel Wade Stadium in Senegal's new showpiece of Diamadios is part of the drive by President Macky Sall to develop West African countries' infrastructure. The stadium, which will host the Summer Youth Olympics in 2026, was filled with fans waving Senegal's green, yellow and red flags. Also in attendance were the presidents of Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, Gambia, Rwanda, Turkey and Germany, as well as Gianni Infantino, the president of the World Soccer Governing Body, FIFA, and the African soccer greats, Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o. It is in this beautiful den that our valiant lions will celebrate their conquest of Africa and the world, Sal told the crowd. FIFA President Gianni said, "We are proud to be able to be here with you today to inaugurate this magnificent stadium. It is the first time we are in this stadium. It's certainly not the last time. We are going to organise the best tournaments in the world here. This is the stadium made of World Cups." Senegal President Macky said, "With his kind approval, I've decided to name the stadium after my predecessor, President Abdoulaye Wade, a homage to his multidimensional career as an intellectual, Pan-Africanist politician and a former president of the Republic of Senegal." National pride is high after Senegal, led by Liverpool forward Sadio Mane, claimed their first Africa Cup of the Nations title by defeating Egypt on February the 6th in Cameroon. The stadium named after the former president, Wade, who Sall defeated in bitterly contest in 2012 election in Senegal's latest high-profile infrastructure project. A basketball arena across the street from the stadium was completed in 2018 and a 1.3 billion commuter railway was inaugurated in December. Sall's opponents, however, have questioned whether these projects will benefit average citizens as much as they do Senegal's tiny elite.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine was condemned by the Sporting Committee on Thursday, with President Vladimir Putin's country set to lose hosting rights for the Champions League final, while Formula One drivers said it was wrong to race there this year.
Russia has launched an all-out invasion of Ukraine by land, sea and air on Thursday, sparking immediate sporting ramifications. The Champions League final is scheduled to be played in St. Petersburg in May, but sources have told that the European soccer governing body, UEFA, is set to move the match to another venue. UEFA President Alexander Serfin has called an extraordinary meeting of the Executive Committee on Friday when the issue will be discussed. The showcase came in European club football, was set to be held in Zenit St. Petersburg Stadium, known as the Gazprom Arena after the sponsorship deal with Russia's Slate Energy Company, which also sponsors Champions League. German soccer club Schalke 04 has had a 15-year partnership with Gazprom, but said they were removing the firm's logo from their jerseys, while the Matthias Waring, chief executive of Nord Stream 2 AG, vacated the position of the club's board directors. Nord Stream 2 AG is owned by Gazprom. The men's tennis governing body said that next week's ATP Challenge event in Moscow would not take place and scheduled due to concerns over players' safety and uncertainty related to international travel. The security of players will remain a top priority in assessing and scheduling of the subsequent ATP Tour and ATP Challenger Tour events in the region. We will continue to monitor the situation, and ATP said to a statement. Athletes from a number of sports also voiced their concerns about travelling to Russia. 4 times Formula One champion Sebastian Vettel said he would not take part in September's Grand Prix in Sochi, adding it was wrong to race in Russia. World champion Max Verstappen agreed with him. "My opinion is that I should not go," Vettel said. "I'm sorry for the innocent people that are losing their lives, that they're getting killed for stupid reasoning and very, very strange and mad leadership." The sports governing body said it was monitoring the situation, but said nothing about potentially moving the Russian Grand Prix. The invasion was also condemned by the International Olympic Committee, which said that the Russian government had breached the Olympic truce currently in effect until next month's Winter Paralympic Games. A joint statement from the Football Association of Poland, Sweden and the Czech Republic called for next month's World Cup playoffs not to be played in Russia. Poland is due to play in Russia on March 24th, with the winners hosting either Sweden or Czechs 5 days later. EuroLeague Basketball, which has teams from several countries including Russia, said the competition would continue as scheduled unless the government decisions prevent games from taking place. The 18 EuroLeague participating clubs will meet tomorrow for further analyse the course of events and take any necessary actions if it is needed. The invasion has also impacted sport events in Ukraine. Soccer matches in the country's Premier League have been suspended due to the imposition of martial law, leaving Shakhtar Donetsk's Italian coach Roberto De Zerbi and his staff of 13 Brazilian players stranded. "We could have gone home as long as there was security, but instead we waited. Last night, the explosions woke us up. This morning, they suspended the season," De Zerbi told Italia Press. Brazilian-born, "We could have gone home as long as there was security, but insisted we waited. But last night, explosions woke us up. This morning, the suspension of the season," De Zerbi told Italia Press. Brazilian-born Ukrainian forward Junior Moras said that there were prisoners in Kiev. "While waiting for a solution to get out of the country, pray for us," he wrote Instagram.
A fossil jawbone peeking out from a limestone seashore on Scotland's Isle of Skye has led scientists to discover the skeleton of a pterosaur that showed that these remarkable flying reptiles got big tens of millions of years earlier than previously known.
Researchers have said on Tuesday, February 22, the pterosaur, named Dierks has lived roughly 170 million years ago during the Jurassic period, soaring over lagoons in a subtropical landscape and catching fish and squid with the crisscrossing teeth perfect for snaring slippery prey. Its scientific name, pronounced as Dierks means winged reptile in Gaelic. With a wingspan of about 8 feet, 2.5 meters, Dierks was the Jurassic's longest known pterosaur and the biggest flying creature that inhabited Earth to that point in time. Some pterosaurs during the subsequent Cretaceous period achieved much greater dimensions, as big as fighter jets, but Dierks shows that this scaling up had its origins much earlier. A forensic analyst of its bones indicated that this Dierks individual was not fully grown and could have had a 10-foot or 3-meter wingspan as an adult. Dierks had weighed very little, probably below 22 pounds or 10 kilograms, thanks to its hollow, lightweight bones and slender structure, said University of Edinburgh paleontology doctoral student Natalia Jagielska, lead author of the research published in the journal Current Biology. It had an elongated skull and long, stiff tail. An arsenal of sharp teeth formed a cage when it bit down on prey. Pterosaurs are some of the rarest vertebrates in the fossil record owing to their fragile bones, some of the walls thinner than a sheet of paper. The specimen is an anomaly because things like this don't usually happen. Pterosaurs are usually squashed because of their very delicate and very rarely get preserved, Jagielska has said. Up until when Dierks have lived, pterosaurs generally have been modest in size, many about the size of a seagull. The prevailing wisdom among scientists had been that pterosaurs did not reach Dierks' size until the Cretaceous, some 25 million years later, with the appearance of creatures like Hohenhepterus, Philongus, and Elongdactylus quetzalcoatlus appearing about 68 million years ago, boosted a wingspan of about 36 feet like an F-16 fighter. In Dierks' time, Britain was closer to the equator and existed as a series of smaller separate islands. Dierks lived alongside a menagerie of plant-eating and meat-eating dinosaurs, early mammals, and marine reptiles. Dierks was discovered in 2017 with a fossil jutting out from a limestone interstitial zone after the tide had gone down. The research battled the tide, first using hammers and chisels and then diamond-tipped saws, but the tide interrupted before the skeleton could be fully extracted. "We almost lost the fossil. We had to let it go, let the tide lap over it. And we had to worry for several hours, come back nearly at midnight to collect it. And thankfully, it was still there," said study co-author Steve Broussat.
And finally, a terrestrial work of art is to be launched to the moon by the end of the year, United Arab Emirates-based artist Sasha Jaffrey has announced on Wednesday, February 23rd. Sasha Jaffrey is a contemporary British artist known for creating the world's largest painting on canvas, Journey of Humanity, as recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records over 7 months during the COVID-19 pandemic in Dubai. His new piece, entitled We Rise Together with the Light of the Moon, is a square golden plaque with 2 intertwined figures lasered onto its surface. British artist Sasha Jaffrey says he wanted to create an artwork that would reconnect humanity or that would help us reconnect. The lunar art piece revealed at Dubai's Expo 2020 went through months of testing to ensure the piece can withstand the extreme temperatures of the moon. SpaceBit, a company developing technology for space, predicts that using space-grade aluminium gold plate as a canvas would enable the piece to last eternally on the moon and withstand temperatures as extreme as negative 173 degrees Celsius and 123 degrees Celsius. Organizers have added that the landing site where Jaffrey's artwork is to be placed will become a World Heritage Landmark. Jeffrey has said the ethics of sending something to the moon were addressed. How can it relate to our planet or to sustainability or to the sustainability of space? How does it affect the environment, the atmosphere? All of these things. And it goes through 6 months of stringent tests. It's so tight and stringent that NASA don't just allow anything to go on a moon land or a rocket. It has to go through all these tests, Jeffrey has said. Along with the various stages of the mission, a series of NFTs created by the artist will be sold in an effort to raise money for charity. An artwork he created sold for $62 million in Dubai, the second most expensive painting sold at auction by a living artist. The painting, The Journey of Humanity, holds the Guinness World Record for the largest art canvas. And now for a look at how the weather will be playing out over the next few days. Thank you for watching the Weekly Roundup on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, you can check out our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team in the Daily Roundup on Monday night at 8 p.m. We will see you then.